All right, so hi and welcome to today's ResBaz Lunch and Learn session. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we're broadcasting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, their elders past and present, and extend that acknowledgement to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders joining us today. I'm Ann Buckhouse and I'm Pawsey's Education and Training Manager. The Pawsey Supercomputing Resource Center is one of Australia's 2 Tier 1 supercomputing centers. As I said earlier, I've got a confession right up front. I'm breaking one of the main rules, never teach alone. So I apologize for that. So you'll have to help me out in this session. Okay. This slide provides a brief look at the outline for today's session. I plan to finish 5 minutes early because there are a few people who had signed up for this session also attending the next session that runs from 1:30 to 2:30, and that's called Is Your Science Causing Your Laptop to Burn? So we have a hands-on, a big chunk of today is hands-on, and that is to create that good practices document that you would have read about in the short description. So first up, I have an activity and I would like you to close your eyes. Yeah, really close your eyes. Think about the last 1.5 years of COVID and lockdowns. And think about a time that you were a virtual learner and you were really engaged in learning. What did that feel like to you? Take a moment to think about what that felt like. Would anybody like to share what that felt like to be an engaged learner? Or perhaps nobody felt like they were engaged in a training session in the last 1.5 years. Is that the case?
No, I can share what I did. So what I found that really worked for me was the ability to stop and start again. So the flexibility of learning at my own pace and according to my own schedule that was changing every day. So so that was the best thing. And so having having the material organized in a way that you can pop in and out flexibly. So whenever you felt like, it was great to me for my particular situation.
Okay, so that would have been a feeling of, yeah, flexibility, your own control, right? You could control your learning environment. Okay, anyone else?
Hi, I do agree with that. It's like you have your own time, like most of the lectures are recorded. So it's like if you couldn't follow on time, it's like it's almost up to you. It's like if you're willing to, you can learn at any time now. It's like day and night. And all the resources are available online. Yeah, that's the best part of the COVID, I guess.
So both of you, Akila and Rafaela, you're saying that engaged you in that material, that engaged you in that training.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like if you miss something real time, so like we can come back to the lecture notes later. And it's like fortunately the last year I was lucky enough to follow some units from USA universities. It's like they make them available through YouTube, and still they're available. It's like they're fantastic. Like if this didn't happen, like I don't think like you will get opportunity to participate those things. So yeah, that's the best part, I guess.
That's very true. We're doing a lot of things that we said we could never do as teachers.
Yeah.
or institutions said that we couldn't do as teachers. Very good point. So now that we've talked about what it means to feel engaged, what are you doing right now in your online teaching to try to give that experience to your students? Are you giving that experience to your students? You may be doing things consciously or unconsciously, purposefully or not. So that's a lofty goal, to be able to aspire to engage your students. I mean, that's, I think, what we all do. And I think that I know personally that I keep working toward that goal. And so just think about this as we're going through today's session. So each of these topics, engagement, interactivity, and community, are core to teaching online, and they could easily have their own lengthy discussion. So we'll look at briefly each of these in the next 3 slides. And then if you're interested in them, there are more resources linked at the end of the deck, and you can research them at your own time. So engagement. When we think and talk about engagement, we often think about the people aspect, engaging with each other. And there definitely is that aspect. However, there's also engaging with the content or engaging with the material. It's hard to continually juggle these 2 types of engagements in course design, but it's important that they are juggled. I find that when I design a session or a course, I start with what are the specific goals and outcomes, learnings, strategies, whatever it is that I'm teaching, what are those specific things that the students are going to walk away with? And then I take those and I design backwards. Then I figure out the content that's needed, and I figure out the activities that are needed, how to chunk the content, how to change up the activities so students can engage with both each other and with the material. For example, especially in online, I think a lot of it started with just putting material online. I think that it works really well, and you're probably doing this. I try to figure out what can be learned outside the classroom, and then inside the classroom, I want it to be as interactive as possible. So it can consolidate what they've learned outside on their own, and it can also confirm that they're tracking with that. In brief, I try to make the learning inside and outside the classroom complementary, not duplicating each other. This also means figuring out what can be synchronous and what can be asynchronous, what activities are solo, what are group, what's a demo, what's a hands-on experience, etc. I find that this is iterative. I go back and forth until I am finding that there's enough changing up to keep students engaged, but not too much to feel like it's all swirling about and taking over the learning experience, because it's not about the activities per se, it's them all contributing to the learning. Then I test it out on unsuspecting students and I iterate some more. While I was reading and preparing for this session, I found something really interesting that I haven't tried out yet, but I would like to try. And that's at the start of the course, when talking about the goals and outcomes of the course, asking the students to look at those, 1 or 2 of those goals that particularly speak to them and their own personal goals. And I think that that sounds like a really interesting way to try to create that bridge and try to make it real to the student. So between the course content and the student and their relationship with the class and with the content of the course. Around interactivity. So we build on, in this slide, this one builds on the previous slide in that the discussion of the course design. The research findings that were presented in this paper demonstrate that course design is only one component for an engaging course. Another very important ingredient is a strong teacher presence. So this becomes interesting because I would just ask you, again, rhetorically, what is your online presence? Are you chatty? Are you reflective? Are you authoritative? Are you approachable? Are you scary? How do you come across? What's your online brand? Because whether or not each of us know it, we have an online brand, and it'd be good to have some say in what that brand is. So whether or not we're consciously doing it or unconsciously doing it, I think we should be conscious that we are creating an online brand and students are viewing us through that. And it is greatly, according to this and other studies, greatly impacting how they engage with the class. And finally, let's talk about community. This consolidates the previous two slides in that it gives a framework called the community of inquiry. It identifies three elements. Hang on, I'll get rid of that. It identifies three elements that are critical for fostering a sense of community, and those elements are represented in each of the circles. In social presence, participants are trying to establish themselves as real or authentically belonging to the community. That may be the class community, the academic community. In cognitive presence, participants are trying to construct meaning and confirm their understanding of the content. And in teaching presence, you as the instructor are there to design, facilitate, and provide direct instruction. And the interplay of these makes up for the educational experience of the student. And through this, you can see we either cultivate a community that provides support for the student, or if we're missing this, if we're not balancing them, we're inadvertently putting up hurdles and barriers to the student. So in a nutshell, deliberate and thoughtful community building is very important. So, whew, that was a lot of information. I tell you, that's it. That's all I'm going to be talking at you. So I'd like you to pause for a moment and think about, we thought about engagement. And when Akila and Rafaela were talking about that, they were talking about it in a solo type of way, right? Because they can access materials when it's convenient for them. What about community? When have you felt part of a community? And again, think about it in what made you feel that way.
You mean like we engage with the community, kind of?
Yeah, so it's important to feel part of a community, and it may be your course community, it may be a subset of your course community. It may not be your course. And I think if it isn't a course and you're wanting to build that community sense, if you're missing it, I think that the students are missing out on it.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So like if we are not lively engaged with the course, or like, yeah, it's like at the moment, yeah, I can give a best example. I don't switch on my video. so we are not really engaging.
Well, I can't see you. So if you've got it on or not, I can't see right now because my screen is blocked with the presentation.
Yeah, so but I used to like as I said, like last year, after I took those courses, so I sent a thanking email to those professors, like thank you for keeping those materials available freely online, and I learned a lot. But I'm definitely sure they didn't expect such email from someone far away. So it
Did
is
you
kind of
feel like you
engagement,
belonged to
but
a
it's not like
community?
a lively interacting. And yeah, it's not like a in one end, I try to get something, I'm not giving back. So like I feel like that, but if in a live class, we are sharing our knowledge and information, experience, so that could happen.
Yes. I have an interesting one with this. I was taking a course on teaching and learning, a master's certificate or something. And my husband was taking a course with a different topic at a different school. And he was really engaged in his course. He was, I mean, they were meeting together, they were Skyping outside of class, etc. And there was not that experience of community in the course that I was taking. And I was trying to figure out what that was, especially since it was a teaching and learning course, and it should have been really promoting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing actually, but it turned out
But
that a
I
lot
guess
of the
like
student,
for the
yeah.
university and like other industry people who are doing courses, they don't expect to interact. There's like they may be listening to the lectures while they're traveling or doing something else, kind of. But I think it's really matters for the school children. So like it's like a massive change for them in this last 1.5 years. Like they really need to interact with the teachers. So yeah, that's my like for the university. I think like if it is really a mathematical or like a something how to say the difference between like if it's like a history or something, you don't have, you can listen to the whole lecture, but like maybe science or maths, so maybe if you have doubt or something, you really need to ask it from the teacher and get it clarified, because like if you miss the lesson, like you can watch it, but it's like if you need to clarify something again, the teacher or the lecturer, so they have to spend another time to explain it. So like it's like a 24-hour working then for the teachers.
I think that's where community actually helps, right? So at the tertiary level, if there's a strong community, you can support each other and answer each other's questions. And that's what a teacher likes to build, because they can't be online 24/7.
Yeah.
It's too hard. And so, yeah, it's really important to try to work to establish community in a session. So now what we're going to do is have some breakouts, and there is a Google Doc. So I'm just going to stop sharing here. There is a Google Doc, which is here. I'm sorry, I see there were some things in the chat. So what we'll do is we'll go in the Google Doc, and what we're looking to do is, well, let's pop over, if you could pop over to the Google Doc, and let's have a look at it. It's activity 2, so it's on the first page. And what we're doing is we're looking for tips and techniques and good practices so share your experiences. Nothing is too small to share. So what have you found works for online learning to engage your students in what's going on in the class? And what's something that is, ouch, that one really didn't work and I don't want to use it again. It would be interesting. And I think this is the real value of what we're going to bring to each other today, is to share those stories, share that with each other and springboard off of each other. So we'll do a 10 to 12, 13-minute breakout and be putting your ideas in the Google document, and then we'll talk through some of those ideas. So I'm going to do breakout rooms. Let's see. I'm going to do 3 breakout rooms. Actually, let's do it out. And you should be getting an invite now to go into the breakout room. And please go into the Google document and add your ideas.
Please.
I'll just resume that. So there were some interesting things going into the document. Is there anything that you found in there that you thought, wow, I never thought of that?
Most of it. Most of it, because, you know, I have never thought very deeply about the teaching, the online teaching problems, because the biggest problem looked like to have someone to teach to. Because many people were very discouraged by the fact they couldn't go to class, or they couldn't go on campus or be physically present, and many people were anxious and anything. So the simple fact of having a lecture and having some people attending to it was already a very big thing. If you think about 2 years ago, nobody would have done this if they could choose, of course.
Mm-hmm. Rafaela, you're on mute. Yeah, that's a very good point. No, nobody would have chosen it, right? But it's a huge pivot for everybody. Huge.
Yeah, to add a little bit to what Edda has just said, there is also the challenge that sometimes it's very difficult to build the community that we were talking about before, because to build a community, you need a mutual interest. So you are interested in creating the community, but the students need to be interested in being part of the community. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, quite often, that interest doesn't exist. So you have to create the interest, and it is really challenging, because you keep throwing ideas, you open a new session, you make yourself available through different channels, you use maybe 2 or 3 different apps, and you give availability to contact you via email. You can say we can set up a WebEx chat, a WebEx meeting if you have something to discuss, but still you will only have those 2 or 3 students that respond to that. And so that to me, that is my challenge, is how to build interest in building a community.
Camelia,
I agree. Yeah.
We're just having this discussion.
Which is, if you think about it, it's quite funny, because we are not in high school, we are not in primary school. So if people enroll in courses, they should be interested from the start. So that's also the problem, you know, because they're adults, so you can't really call them to attention. So yeah, it's difficult.
So in the discussion with Camilla, do you want to share what we were talking about?
Yeah, sure. No, just that I usually work with students in practicals or tutorials after they attended the main lectures. And my feeling is that most of the time they just want to get their job done. And so they're not particularly interested in interacting with me personally, with a few exceptions. Sometimes they know about my research project, and so there are a couple of people who may be interested in exactly the same thing that would ask me because of that. But in general, like, they want to get their things done, and if they want to talk with each other, they kind of do that on their own. Like, they don't expect me to help them make friends. Or to slow them down by trying to ask everyone, share at which point you are with this other person, and so on. And I'm never sure about how much should I try actively to engage them and connect, and how much I should just let them do their things.
It's really interesting tension, right? I think the role is a lot more facilitator in an online world. We're much more a facilitator to learning than we are a teacher. It's helping them get to the content. It's helping them to construct their own knowledge. It's helping them to connect with each other. And that you just need to make the connections, right? You don't have to be the connection. You have to be the enabler, the facilitator of it. And also, if you're teaching the course, you have to be imparting the information and trying to find ways for them to connect with it, right? Like they're building a community with each other. They may find one person in the course that they connect with, and that's great. It may not be that this whole cohort bonds with each other. It may happen, it may not happen, but somehow connecting with that material, because I have to engage to it to be able to pass, right? And like we said, it could be that the goal is, okay, we're all in here. We all want to get our assignments done. How can we best do that? How can we all do that together? Do we divvy it up?
Yes.
How do we do that? So then it's a community of focus, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Sometimes the other difficult thing is that you don't set the content. And so, yeah, it's, if you receive criticism, you're not sure how to answer to that, because maybe you agree sometimes, or like you would change things, but you cannot really. But yeah.
And I think it's okay to agree. You don't have to toe the company line, so to speak. Yeah, if I were doing it, I might do a bit differently, but this is what we have to work with. What can we do with it? Was having an interesting, Camilla?
No, I was wondering, reading the comments on the shared document about the asking pronouns, which I understand the importance of not making assumptions, but I find it a bit difficult from a logistical point of view, like starting by asking, how should I call you, or like this kind of thing.
I'll just reply to that, Camilla, because that was one that I put in. It was more just not assuming rather than asking everyone individually, but instead of, assuming, oh, she has said this, rather saying they wherever possible. And if you introduce yourself with your own pronouns as well, then that can set it up for others. If they want to disclose theirs, then they can as well, which takes like a second.
Okay, yeah.
I think that goes toward also being inclusive and building a safe space. It's really important, right? Especially as a semester starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you build that people want to turn on their videos, or that they want to talk out loud on especially if it's recorded, right? How do you set that up? How do you build it? And Sarah and I were talking about that, helping build a code of conduct of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And it doesn't have to be a big, long, drawn out thing, but having people know that there are norms, there are ways of communicating and talking to each other that are respectful and that are expected. And I think that goes a long way into setting up the atmosphere in a class.
Yeah, I agree.
Has anybody done that in their classes?
Saying pronouns?
Pronouns or other ways of, just trying to set up that inclusive, safe space.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're working on. I'm from the Curtin University Library, and we're trying to build it into our regular workshops. But even just like an acknowledgement of country sets that scene well as well. To welcome Indigenous people to the class as well. Introducing yourself with your pronouns is a really easy one to make it a safe space. And then if you have a little statement of the code of conduct or something, just to say, there's no stupid questions here. We're all here to support each other, kind of thing, and just, make that really clear from the start. Yeah.
I think one thing that I think is really important is language, inclusive language. And we talk about that a lot in the carpentries when they do instruction. And that is not saying something is easy or simple, or it only has 3 simple steps. This is just how you do this. Because if it's new for somebody, it's not a just or it's not an easy, not necessarily. And if I don't find it easy, and you've just told me it's easy, now I feel stupid. I feel like there's something wrong with me because I don't find it easy. So I think keeping that in mind is really important. Watching language. And also a really good one that sounds not very different, but is quite different is, does anyone have any questions? Sounds like, okay, if I have a question, it's because I didn't get it. And so I don't want to be the one who says, yeah, I kind of didn't get it. But assuming that everybody has a questions. So say, what questions do you have? So that assumption is that everybody's got questions. What questions do you have? And if you have somebody who's teaching in the class with you, it's about maybe even asking them to pop up and go, well, actually, can you go back over X because I didn't understand that? And that helps speak for the student if a student may or may not want to speak up and open that floor for questions.
Yep.
And I definitely wouldn't do what I heard someone do in a class, and I kid you not. Oh, you're here again? You were at one of these courses before. Why are you, we're not going to cover anything you haven't already learned. Oh my God, if that were me, I would leave and I would never come back. Because that obviously pulled me out as being separate and I didn't catch it.
Excuse me, Anne. Will we get to have a copy of the shared documents that we wrote? It was full of interesting tips and anything else. Would that be possible?
Yes, yes. So if you go in that document and put your email address, I'll make sure that I download the copy at the end of this session and I'll send it off to you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, at the it's point 1. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's all right.
I was wondering if you have someone that joins late or like people not joining on time in an online session and just, yeah, people coming in late, what would be the best thing to do? Like if you point them out, like you that were not here at the beginning, is that bad for them? And then if you repeat the thing, is that bad for the people that are there, that were there before? Or do you just type in the chat, hey, I noticed you weren't here at the beginning, let me know. Like,
that's hard, right? Right, because it's everybody can be caught off guard and come to something late because of something that's happened, right? It happens to all of us. I guess if it's a pattern and somebody's disruptive, that's not really respecting other people's time either. So I don't know that there's a hard, fast one on that, but I would kind of see if there's a pattern, and it can be in your code of conduct as well about, you know, expecting people to try to, you know, to show up on time, but understanding if something comes up, right? Life happens.
yeah.
But then having a catch up, you know, saying we can catch up at break or we can do something, because it's not fair to have 20 or more people sit through something they've already covered. This has been great. So the remaining slides, there's just one that has it has a resources slide, and that's it. And it's just a question slide. So unless there are questions, I said I'd let you go 5 minutes early. I apologize, it's only 3 minutes early. So if you're,
That's okay.
if you're going to the next one, you only have 3 minutes now.
Are we allowed to contact you in the future? Should we have some issues, some problems, some advice to ask, or something that maybe we don't want to discuss with our direct supervisors for all sorts of reasons that you might imagine?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
anytime.
yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for your email. Pawsey.
Yeah, pawsey.org.au. And if your name's in there, I'll be sending you the document anyway, so you'll have my reply email there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all very
Thank you
much
very
for your time, and I hope you took away one thing. That's all, just one thing new.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.